breathing heavily.
Samantha's breath, shallow and quick, resonated in the stark silence of the backroom's labyrinthine corridors. Each step she took was cautious, her sneakers barely whispering against the nondescript beige carpet that stretched endlessly ahead. The dim fluorescence above cast long spectral shadows that seemed to play tricks on her senses, making the walls appear as if they were silently shifting their positions. Beside her, Dr. Lancaster moved with a steady grace, his presence a comforting constant in the disorienting maze. His greying hair seemed almost luminescent under the flickering lights, and his sharp features were set in an expression of unwavering focus. Samantha stole glances at him, seeking reassurance from his calm demeanour. He seemed to read the walls as if they were pages in a book, his piercing eyes scanning every inch, decoding the secrets of this place like a seasoned scholar. As if sensing her mounting anxiety, he offered a small, knowing smile.
Stay close. The backrooms have a way of testing one's resolve.
Then, without warning, reality buckled. The overhead lights stuttered violently, casting the corridor into a stroboscopic nightmare. Samantha's heart lurched, her hands flying out to clutch at the wall for support. The once stationary surfaces now pulsed around her, creating the nightmarish illusion that the very space was constricting, threatening to crush them in its invisible grip.
Dr. Lancaster!
Steady, Samantha. This is common. The backrooms are temperamental.
Temperamental? Is this the night? Is it near?
Perhaps. Many believe the night is not just a creature but an embodiment of the backrooms themselves, an abstract concept made manifest, but fear not, these shifts are mere ripples in its vast ocean.
He reached out, his hand briefly squeezing her shoulder with a reassuring pressure.
Ripples.
Exactly. Now let's press on. We must find the others before true darkness descends.
With a shaky nod, Samantha followed Dr. Lancaster deeper into the enigmatic expanse of the backrooms, where the unknown lurked behind every corner and within every shadow. As they edged forward, the corridors seemed to constrict around them, the air growing viscous and cold. Samantha wrapped her arms around herself, shivering not only from the chill but also from the sense of claustrophobia that was setting in. The silence of the backrooms was now a tangible force, pressing against her eardrums with an almost physical weight.
Look at this,
Dr. Lancaster murmured, his fingers tracing over strange symbols etched into the wall. They were angular, as if drawn with a compass rather than a human hand, and glowed faintly with an otherworldly light. He leaned closer, his breath fogging up in the frigid air.
Fascinating. These markings, they're not random. They're language.
Language, can you read it?
Only bits and pieces. It's old, perhaps ancient. It speaks of thresholds and crossings. We're close to something significant.
Samantha's skin prickled at the thought. Close to what? More danger or perhaps a way out?
Before she could voice her concern, a sound fluttered towards them. Footsteps, distant yet distinct, reverberating through the narrow halls.
Samantha's pulse quickened, her eyes darting to Dr. Lancaster's face. They shared a look, one that communicated a mutual understanding without the need for words. Silently they agreed, confrontation was not an option. They hastened their pace, the echoes of the unseen presence growing louder behind them. Each step felt heavier, as though the ground itself was reluctant to let them go. Samantha's thoughts raced ahead of her feet, conjuring up images of what sort of denizen might be stalking them through the twisted corridors.
Keep moving, don't look back.
She didn't. Samantha focused on the man before her, trying to emulate his composure. If he was afraid, he did not show it. His every move was measured, deliberate, as if he had walked these unnatural passageways 1,000 times before. But even Dr. Lancaster, with all his knowledge and charisma, could not keep the fear from creeping into Samantha's heart. A fear that maybe the night wasn't just a place or a creature, but an ever-present shadow, always just a few paces behind, waiting for the moment to envelop them entirely.
They reached a fork in the labyrinth where the sterile hum of fluorescent lights above gave way to contrasting shadows that tugged at the edges of reality. Dr. Lancaster halted, his greying hair illuminated briefly as he looked down one corridor and then the other. His sharp features were set in concentration left. The pattern suggests it leads towards a central hub.
Samantha lingered at the junction, her gaze drawn to the right, unable to shake the feeling that something beyond logic beckoned her. The corridor stretched into gloom, its walls adorned with symbols that seemed to dance and shift when not looked at directly.
Dr. Lancaster.
Her voice trailed off, her intuition whispering secrets she couldn't quite grasp.
You sense something?
Maybe. It's just a feeling, but...
Before she could finish, a sound caressed their ears, a murmur so faint it was as if the very air hesitated to carry it. Voices, or what passed for voices in this forsaken place, drifted from the path Samantha felt drawn to.
Did you hear that?
Her heart quickened, not with fear but with the prospect of finding others lost in this maze.
Voices here can be misleading.
His tone dipped into caution, but Samantha saw the slight tilt of his head, the inevitable pull of curiosity that mirrored her own.
Please, if there are others, we should try to find them. We're better together, aren't we?
The enigmatic doctor studied her for a moment, weighing options unseen to Samantha. Then, with a resigned nod, he stepped towards the path on the right.
Very well, but stay close. The night has many guises, and not all who wander these halls are friendly.
As they moved forward, the whispers grew incrementally louder, drawing them deeper into the backroom's clutches. Samantha's hope fluttered like a candle flame, vulnerable yet persistent, leading them onward into the uncertain embrace of potential allies or the deceptive lure of the night itself. The corridor constricted, the walls inching closer with every step Samantha and Dr. Lancaster took toward the elusive voices. Ancient pipes groaned overhead, a symphony of decay that resonated through the stagnant air. The murmurs swelled into discernible cadences, snatches of conversation spiraling towards them like leaves caught in an unseen whirlwind.
Can you make out what they're saying?
Bits and pieces, the echo distorts the words. Caution, Samantha.
She nodded, her anticipation tinged with the metallic taste of anxiety. These winding passages twisted reality, playing tricks on the mind. She clung to the hope of allies, but couldn't shake the dread that another presence, something more sinister, might be masquerading as salvation, a manifestation of the night perhaps, ever amorphous and hungry. They turned a corner and were greeted by a dimly lit chamber, its expanse a rare reprieve from the oppressive corridors. A group of survivors clustered together like moths around a lantern, their shadows dancing across the walls. At the fringe stood a woman, her short red hair a stark contrast against the pallid backdrop, her green eyes sharp and assessing.
Who are you?
Her voice was a blade drawn in defense, cutting through the murk.
I'm Samantha, and this is Dr. Oliver Lancaster. We heard your voices.
Those piercing eyes flickered between them, dissecting intentions and weighing truths. Samantha could feel the weight of Iris O'Connell's gaze, the survivalist's instinct scrutinizing them for any hint of deceit or danger. An understandable reaction when the night could be anyone, anything, even the very ground beneath their feet. Dr. Lancaster offered a polite, disarming smile, though it failed to reach his calculating eyes.
We mean no harm, we're simply navigating these unique circumstances.
His voice held the reverence of a man who knew the backrooms better than most, yet feared them just the same.
Intentions?
Iris's questions sliced through the stifling air of the chamber. Every syllable a testament to her command over the beleaguered group. Her eyes, green and piercing, never left Samantha's face, demanding an answer that would satisfy the primal calculus of trust.
We want out, same as you. We heard your voices and hoped we might help each other.
Dr. Lancaster stepped forward, his presence like a shield beside Samantha. His charisma was a lantern in the gloom, yet around these wary souls it flickered uncertainly. They were not so easily charmed within these walls, where that whispered of unseen horrors.
Your knowledge of this place, it runs deep, doesn't it? How can we trust that you're not influenced?
Her gaze held the edge of a dagger, one wrong word away from drawing blood.
Indeed, my studies have been extensive, but influenced. The night holds no sway over me. Its abstract terrors are as much a mystery to me as to anyone.
Studies?
Observations and experience, nothing more, I assure you.
Iris appraised him for a moment longer, then nodded slowly, her expression softening just enough to allow a sliver of light into the darkened room. a flicker of understanding that perhaps they were all pawns in a greater game. Samantha watched the interplay of shadows on Iris O'Connell's face, a delicate dance of doubt and resolve. They stood in the dim chamber, every breath amplifying the gravity of their situation. Samantha recognized the flicker in Iris's eyes, the same flame of determination that had kept her own feet moving when all she wanted was to collapse.
Surviving here. It's more than just navigating endless corridors. It's about holding on to who we are, even as the night tries to strip us of everything.
Yes, we can't let this place change us, not at our core.
In the periphery, Dr. Lancaster observed the exchange, his silver-streaked hair catching what little light seeped into the chamber. He offered a nod, his insights like breadcrumbs leading them through a forest of uncertainty.
The night is adept at weaving illusions, preying on fears, doubts, but remember, it's the bonds between us that it cannot replicate or understand.
A murmur passed through the survivors, a mix of fascination and apprehension lacing their whispers. Lancaster's words hung heavy in the air, a riddle wrapped in his own past dealings with the uncanny forces at play. At that moment, one of the survivors, a burly man with scars mapping his journey, stepped forward. He extended a weathered hand, revealing a handful of jerky. "Survivor, eat! We've all walked hard roads to be here." Samantha accepted the offering, the salty tang grounding her to the moment. Around her, others did the same, tearing small pieces with teeth and fingers made clumsy by fatigue. The simple act of sharing food coaxed smiles from weary faces, and for an instant, the oppressive atmosphere of the backrooms lifted.
Thank you.
She murmured, meeting the eyes of the man who shared what little he had. Her gratitude was mirrored in the nods of those around her, each person finding solace in this small gesture of unity. Resilience, Samantha thought, watching the group rally around the shared meal. It was more than survival. It was the refusal to be broken by circumstances or by the creeping dread that sought to claim them. In that moment, she felt the threads of camaraderie weave a fragile tapestry of trust among them and drew strength from its warmth. Iris studied them, her green eyes flickering with the flame of a survivor's spirit.
All right, you're in. But we watch our backs in here, not just for the night, but for each other.
Samantha nodded, feeling the tingle of acceptance rush through her veins. It was a chance, a sliver of opportunity in this maze of madness. She watched as Dr. Lancaster offered a curt nod, his expression unreadable, yet his eyes glinted with what could be interpreted as satisfaction, or was it calculation?
Thank you.
Her voice steady despite the flutter in her chest. Iris's approval felt like a beacon cutting through the fog of uncertainty that had shrouded them since they first stumbled into this distorted reality. The group began to gather their meager belongings, preparing to face the enigmatic labyrinth once again. Samantha rolled her stiff shoulders back, trying to shake off the apprehension that clung to her like a second skin. They were about to delve deeper into the backrooms, where whispers of the night morphed from hushed legends into palpable fear.
Stay sharp. We don't know what turns these halls will take.
The survivors fell into a ragged line behind Iris, who moved with the grace of someone used to navigating treacherous terrain. Samantha took her place beside Dr. Lancaster, sensing the same electric current of tension that seemed to hum through his veins. They stepped forward together, joining the others in a procession marked not by triumph, but by necessity. As they ventured onward, the walls appeared to pulse with an unseen heartbeat, the air thick with the residue of unexplained phenomena. Samantha spared a last glance over her shoulder, her eyes tracing the path they had travelled. The shadows seemed to shift and coil in the dimness, as if the very fabric of the place conspired to confuse and confound.
Keep moving. Remember, the true nature of the night is yet to reveal itself.
Samantha turned away from the darkness behind them, facing forward. Each step was a silent testament to their collective determination. Even as the oppressive presence of the backrooms loomed all around, a reminder that they tread on the threshold of the unknown. Ahead lay a future riddled with danger and uncertainty, and yet within her, hope refused to be extinguished, a tiny defiant spark in the enveloping gloom.